136. Let's get to Scream 3. Came out in 2000. It's once again directed by Wes Craven. Stars basically the same cast as the last one, David Arquette, but also Jenny McCarthy's in there for a little bit. Kelly Rutherford, Patrick Dempsey, a few others. And the synopsis is while Sydney and her friends visit the Hollywood set of Stab 3, the third film based on the Woodsboro murders, another Ghostface killer rises to terrorize them. So this one, when I first saw it, I've seen it 2 or 3 times now. I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know much of the overall critic and audience ratings or anything like that, so I just went in fairly blank. And I think that it is the weakest, just to put it right out there. I still like it, and I think talking about other slasher franchises that are 6+ movies in, this movie, spoiler, is a 3.5 out of 5. And I think if the weakest movie, I know some people might rate it much lower, I don't know. But for me, I don't think there's another slasher franchise out there that has the lowest movie being a 3.5 out of 5. Like, there are usually really low lows for these types of films, but all 6 of these are all fairly solid. Like, there's not really huge issues or things I find truly offensive or think, oh man, that one was horrible, that was embarrassing. I hope they do better on the next one. I've never felt that once with Scream. So that's a pretty big accomplishment, in my opinion. But starting off with the movie, it begins with Liev Schreiber's character. Spoilers here. He ends up dying because there's that whole chase, cat and mouse sequence with his girlfriend, I think it is, in the house, and where she thinks he's Ghostface, and then Ghostface actually comes in and kills her and then him. So I love all of that sleight of hand and misdirection that Wes Craven does really, really well. And this one also, even though it doesn't save the movie, I really like when films take place on movie sets. There's that meta aspect to it of a movie being made while you're watching a movie. So I like the Hollywood movie making world in this movie, and the Stab 3 meta aspect to it, where they're also making a stab or a quote unquote Scream stab movie while you're watching Scream. I think all that's pretty clever, and something that Scream really owns that in terms of the meta commentary and perspective. So I think they can get away with doing as much as they want with that. But getting into some of the issues with the movie, while I've said before, I don't mind Scream films being 2-ish hours long, whereas most slashers are typically about 90 minutes. I don't mind, for the most part, that they are a little bit longer than normal. However, this one, to me, uses the longer runtime the least effectively. There's not as much going on. I think there's a little bit too much filler, a few too many twists where, for example, there only being one killer instead of 2 or more. I think, while I guess I can say, yes, that's new in terms of you not expecting that, but going back and rewatching all of them together, that immediately makes this one stick out, and not really in a good way, because that allows, because really Ghostface isn't even really in this that much, because if he's the killer is in a scene, there's not going to be a Ghostface appearance. And so that immediately limits the amount of screen time Ghostface can have, because you need to have that character to build up the story. And so then you can't have really the shock factors of the others, where you think this guy's the killer, or he might be a killer, and then suddenly another Ghostface appears, or 2 more, whatever. And so I think that's not great in retrospect, and I see what they're going for, but I don't think it really works. I like the reveal of that character, and with him and Sydney, I think that's effective on a character emotional level, but the concept overall I don't like, of just the one killer, because Scream, really, that's what makes it iconic, is the 2 or more killers, And so the movie is a little too long for what's there, but the third act is still great, as I say with all these movies, and everything in the house with the cat and mouse, very, classic Scream play out. I really, really enjoy that. The sequence with Jenny McCarthy and Ghostface, I think that's one of the best parts of the movie, and that's a very classic Scream kill sequence. The death of the bodyguard in the trailer with Ghostface stabbing him in the back is good. And then another self-aware meta conversation is with the guy from the past movie explaining the rules of a trilogy. I don't really mind that stuff. When I first saw it, as I've talked about, I didn't love that. But now all that stuff works for me. I enjoy it. I kind of enjoy thinking about that idea and how they actually incorporate that into the actual movie. It's not just fluff. They actually make a point of either pointing fun at themselves or trying to create something new. So I appreciate all that. Also, Carrie Fisher shows up trying to not be Carrie Fisher because she says, I lost the role of Leia to somebody else and, all that. So that's a little weird, but it's also meta. So I guess it works. The house explosion, I think, towards the middle of the movie is very good. It looks pretty practical. I don't know, maybe that's CG, but it looks pretty good and pretty real. So that's something considering when it came out. But really, other than that, I feel like the movie is sort of forgettable in some ways, aside from some of those scenes I just mentioned. There's just not a lot going on underneath. I feel like they are at a point where they're not really sure where to go. Like, all right, well, basically the only thing we can change is making it one killer, not two. So I don't think the movie's bad, as I said. So if you haven't seen it, I would give it a look. I think it'll always be the weakest of at least the 6 that we have at this point. But if you're a Scream fan, if you're a horror fan, you could do a whole heck of a lot worse than Scream 3. But I am glad that they did find their footing once again with 4, as we'll get to. So that one is a heavy 3.5 out of 5.